The frozen planet of Nera 7 was quiet, deadly, and white as far as the eyes could see. And on one terrible night, when the ice storm screamed across the land like a wild beast, a tiny alien child wandered alone through the storm. Their small feet sank into the endless snow, their legs shaking with every step. The wind pushed them again and again, almost knocking their tiny body down each time they tried to be brave. But the cold was too much for someone so small. The child's skin, pale, blue, and soft, had turned almost white from frost. Every breath came out as a little cloud of ice, and their eyes filled with tears. The tears did not fall normally. They froze the moment they touched the air, turning into tiny cold crystals sliding down their cheeks. The child cried harder because they knew tears meant danger. Every crystal that froze on their skin took away a little more warmth, a little more life. They wrapped their thin arms around themselves and tried to scream, "Help! Someone, please!" But the storm swallowed their voice. The sound died before it could travel even a few meters. No one could hear them out here. The child's name was Lyra, only 8 years old. And already they felt like the storm wanted to bury them forever. They had lost their family only an hour before the grown-ups ran to find safety. But Lyra slipped, fell behind, and the storm covered everything fast. One moment, their mother was holding their hand. The next moment, she was gone, lost behind a wall of sharp snow. Lyra kept walking left foot, right foot. Left foot just hoping someone, anyone, would find them. But the storm grew even stronger. Snow hit their face like needles. Ice cut their exposed fingers. Their tiny heartbeat grew slower, softer, weaker. They hugged themselves even more tightly and whispered, "I don't want to die." Then suddenly, a new sound cut through the storm. A deep, mechanical hum, slow but powerful. Lyra's ears lifted, and they wiped their frozen tears. Something was moving out there, something large, something warm, something alive. A shadow appeared first, very far away. But growing larger with every second, Lyra blinked again and again, trying to understand what they were seeing. A tall figure pushed through the snow, its heavy boots leaving deep marks. A bright lamp on its chest cut through the blizzard like a sword of light, and behind that light was a face unlike any alien Lyra had ever seen. It was a human. Humans were rare visitors on Nera 7. Some aliens said humans were dangerous. Others said humans were too soft to survive harsh worlds like this. But Lyra did not care about stories right now. They just saw real warmth in this human's glowing suit. The human stopped just a few steps away and stared in shock. "Oh no," he whispered to himself. His name was Ethan, a human explorer assigned to map this dangerous region. He had not expected to find anyone alive in this storm, especially not a child. Ethan immediately knelt down, brushing snow away from the small figure. He gently touched Lyra's shoulder. Hey, can you hear me?" His voice was warm, calm, and full of worry. Lyra tried to answer, but only a weak breath came out. Ethan looked at the frozen crystals on Lyra's face and felt fear rise inside him. If he had arrived even 5 minutes later, this child would have frozen completely, without wasting another second. Ethan pulled off his heated cloak and wrapped it around Lyra's body. The cloak's warmth surrounded them instantly, and Lyra shivered as their body reacted to the sudden heat. "I've got you," Ethan said softly. "You're safe now. I promise." But even as he said those words, the storm grew louder, fiercer, like it was angry he had taken its prey. The wind pushed against Ethan, nearly knocking him down. His helmet sensors beeped a warning, visibility dropping, temperature falling, oxygen limited. Ethan lifted the child in his arms and held them close. Lyra's head rested against his chest, feeling the strong, steady heartbeat through the suit. A warm heartbeat in a world made of cold death. But Ethan knew the truth he couldn't say out loud. He was far from safe. The storm was getting worse. And both of them, human and alien child, were still trapped in the deadliest part of the frozen wasteland. Still, he tightened his hold and whispered, "I'm not leaving you. Not now. Not ever." And with the storm howling around them like a monster hungry for their lives, Ethan took his first step into the blizzard. Carrying hope in his arms, Ethan held the small alien child tightly against his chest as he pushed forward into the storm. The snow hit his helmet again and again, sounding like tiny stones striking metal. His suit tried to keep the temperature stable. But even advanced human tech struggled on this frozen planet. The wind roared so loudly that it felt like the entire world was screaming. Lyra, wrapped in Ethan's heated cloak, shivered in his arms. Their small hands clutched the front of his suit, their breaths shallow and weak. Ethan looked down and saw the child's eyelids fluttering. He whispered, "Stay awake. Don't sleep, okay? I'm taking you home," but Lyra barely nodded. Ethan checked his map screen on his wrist. The storm's energy signals were too strong, even the map shook with interference. The base was far, too far if he followed the normal path. Both he and the child would freeze long before reaching safety. He needed another plan, a faster route, even if it was dangerous. He hesitated for only a moment, then made his choice. "There's a shortcut," he murmured, "but it's risky. Cliffs, narrow paths." No time to think, he adjusted his grip on Lyra and turned sharply toward the giant ridges in the distance. Every step felt heavier than the last. Snow gathered around his legs, slowing him. His boots sank deep with each movement, and the biting wind tried to pull Lyra right out of his arms. But Ethan didn't let go, not even for a second. His duty didn't matter anymore. This wasn't just a mission. This was a life as he moved toward the cliffs. Ethan noticed something strange. The storm wasn't random. It pushed in one direction. Like it wasn't just whether Rit was alive, it wanted to drive him somewhere. Maybe toward danger, maybe toward something worse. The temperature dropped again, even lower than before. The screen on Ethan's helmet blinked a warning: critical cold suit stability at risk. "Not now," Ethan muttered. "Come on." "Hold it together." He shielded Lyra with his body as another blast of icy wind hit them like a wall. Lyra's fingers twitched weakly. Their voice was small, barely a whisper. "Why? Why are you helping me?" Ethan looked down briefly, snow gathering on his shoulders. "Because you're a child. And no child should die alone in a storm." Lyra stared at him, confused. Humans were rare here. And most aliens believed humans cared only for their own species. But this human was different. His warmth felt real. His voice kind, his arms steady. Like a shield against death itself, suddenly the ground shook beneath them. Ethan froze, holding Lyra tighter. A rumbling sound echoed across the frozen valley, like something huge moving under the ice. Cracks appeared around Ethan's boots, spreading like spiderwebs across the ground. "Come on, not this too." He breathed. Snow fell from the cliffs above. Small at first, then heavier. The storm followed the tremor. Becoming even more violent, Ethan rushed forward, trying to escape the cracking ground. But the moment he reached the base of the cliffs, something else happened. A long, low howl cut through the storm. A howl that did not come from the wind. Ethan stopped, his heart pounding. Another howl followed. Then another. Lyra's eyes widened, fear returning to their small face. Ice wolves. They whispered. They hunt warmth. Ethan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. Predators on this planet could smell human heat through the snow. And he was carrying the warmest thing in the storm. A living child, shapes moved in the white darkness. Tall and thin, gliding silently across the snow. Their glowing blue eyes reflected the storm's light. Ethan turned slowly, trying not to panic. "Stay quiet," he whispered to Lyra. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." But one of the creatures stepped forward. Lifting its sharp head, its breath came out as cold mist, and its claws dug into the snow. It was close, too close. Ethan's suit scanner beeped urgently. Lifeform approaching predator mode detected. Lyra's grip on Ethan tightened. "They killed my group. They eat hearts for warmth." Ethan swallowed. "Not today." He raised his weapon, only to hear a terrible click. Weapon malfunctioning. Temperature too low. The creatures closed in. Ethan's mind raced. One weapon, dead. Child freezing, wolves hunting, storm worsening, no safe path. No backup, no time. He had only one choice. He pulled Lyra close and ran straight toward the narrow cliff path, the dangerous shortcut that only insane explorers tried. The wolves howled and chased, their claws slicing ice like butter. The storm screamed, the wolves ran, and Ethan pushed forward with everything he had left. Not for survival, but for the tiny child in his arms whose life depended on him, and the real danger was only beginning. Ethan ran through the storm with Lyra held tightly in his arms. The snow stung his face like sharp needles, and the wind pulled at his cloak as if trying to steal the child away. Behind him, the howls of the ice wolves echoed again and again. Each howl sounded closer, louder, more hungry. The narrow cliff path appeared ahead, just a thin line of rock above a deep, frozen drop. One wrong step could mean death. The storm made it even worse, blocking half his vision and shaking the ground under his boots. But Ethan didn't stop. He couldn't stop. The child in his arms could not survive even 10 more minutes in this cold without him. Lyra opened their eyes a little. The faint blue glow from their skin flickered like a dying candle. Are they still coming? Ethan didn't want to scare them. But he couldn't lie either. "Yes," he said softly. "But I won't let them reach you." Lyra buried their face in his chest. Trembling, Ethan set his foot on the first part of the cliff path. The entire path was barely wide enough for one person. Ice covered the rocks, making every step slippery. One slip, and both he and Lyra would fall into the darkness below. But behind him, the wolves, he couldn't choose the easy way. There was no easy way. He moved carefully, step by step. Pressing his back against the frozen cliff wall to keep balance, the wind hit him from the side, trying to push him off the ledge, but Ethan leaned forward, gripping the rock with his free hand while holding Lyra tightly with the other. Then he heard it, a soft, low growl. Just behind him, Ethan turned his head slowly. There, standing at the entrance to the cliff path, was the largest ice wolf he had ever seen. Its body was tall and sleek, like a predator built for killing. Its fur was white and sharp-looking, glittering with frost. Its eyes glowed bright blue like frozen fire. It stared at Ethan without blinking. Its breath rose as cold vapor from its long muzzle, and when it stepped forward, the snow beneath it cracked from the weight of its monstrous body. Ethan whispered, "Not now. Please, not now." He tightened his grip around Lyra and moved faster. His boots slid slightly on the ice, but he caught himself just in time. Lyra gasped when they heard the crack beneath them. The wolf took another step, then another. Its claws clicked against the stone, slow and calm, like it knew Ethan had nowhere to run. Behind it, 2 more wolves appeared, smaller but still terrifying. Their eyes glowed in the storm like cold lanterns. Lyra's voice was tiny. "They smell us." Ethan nodded. I know. His weapon was still dead. Frozen solid, it was useless, a chunk of metal in his belt. His suit heater was struggling now too, blinking in red. The cold felt like it was trying to crawl into his bones. He had very few options left. Then something happened he did not expect. The path ahead shook, and a sheet of snow fell from above. Blocking part of the walkway, Ethan kicked at the snow, trying to clear a space to step. But the wolves noticed the delay. They started moving faster now, almost running. "Hold on," Ethan whispered to Lyra. He took a deep breath and jumped over the blocked area. Landing hard, his ankle twisted, sending sharp pain up his leg. He gritted his teeth. He could not fall. Not now. The wolves reached the blocked part of the path. But the biggest wolf simply leaped across it easily. Its huge body moved with deadly grace. Its claws landed just inches away from Ethan's footprints. Ethan felt sweat on his forehead. Despite the cold, his heart hammered. The cliffs ahead continued for a long distance to long. He had to think fast if he kept running straight. The wolves would catch him easily. He needed something else. Something smart. He looked at the cliff wall, searching, scanning, praying for an idea. And then he saw a narrow crack in the rock. A small opening that seemed to lead into a hidden cave inside the cliffs. It was tight, dark, and unknown, but it was a path the wolves would struggle to enter. And it was better than certain death on the cliff. "Lyra," Ethan whispered, "I'm going to take us inside that cave." "Don't be scared," Lyra nodded weakly. Trusting him completely now, Ethan rushed toward the crack. The wolves racing behind him, the biggest wolf leaped again, and its claws scraped the stone just inches from Ethan's back. The sound echoed like metal tearing. Ethan didn't stop. He reached the crack and squeezed inside, holding Lyra close. The cave was narrow, so narrow his shoulders scraped the stone, but he forced his way through, pushing deeper, deeper, deeper. The wolves tried to follow. Their claws scratched the rock. Their growls filled the cave's entrance, but they were too big to enter all the way. Their heads fit, but their bodies did not. The biggest wolf roared in frustration, the sound shaking loose snow from the ceiling of the cave. Ethan hugged Lyra protectively as the wolf snapped at the air just inches from his boots. But they were safe for now. Inside the dark cave, Ethan could breathe again. Lyra clung to him tightly, whispering, "Thank you. Thank you." But Ethan knew something important. Escaping the wolves was only the beginning. This cave, this storm, this planet, still held dangers he could not yet imagine. The narrow cave swallowed Ethan and Lyra in complete darkness. Only the faint blue glow from Lyra's skin lit the space around them, making their small face look even more fragile. The storm roared outside, and the frustrated growls of the ice wolves echoed through the entrance. Their claws scratched the stone, but they could not enter. Their bodies were too large for the tight opening. Ethan pressed his back against the cold cave wall. Breathing hard, his chest rose and fell with exhaustion. His legs trembled from the dangerous run, but he still held Lyra close, keeping the cloak wrapped tightly around them both. "Are you okay?" he whispered. Lyra nodded, but their voice cracked. I'm scared." Ethan placed a gentle hand on their head. "I know. But you're safe here, I promise." The wolves growled one last time before the sound slowly faded. The wind swallowed their voices as they moved away into the storm. Ethan let out a slow breath, relieved, but he knew they couldn't stay here forever. He switched on the small emergency light on his suit. A dim circle of yellow light filled the cave, revealing jagged walls, thin layers of frost, and a narrow tunnel going deeper. Ethan frowned. This place goes far inside. That might be good or bad. Lyra lifted their head weakly. Sea caves like this, some are safe, some are not. Ethan smiled softly. "That's helpful." Lyra's cheeks warmed slightly, embarrassed. Ethan checked his suit status. The heater was failing. The temperature gauge blinked dangerously low. His oxygen level had dropped too. Not enough time, not enough heat, not enough safety anywhere. He needed shelter, real shelter, not a temporary hideout. Lyra watched him silently. their eyes soft but full of fear. My people. They have a settlement not far from here. But the storm. It wasn't like this earlier. What do you mean? Ethan asked. Lyra swallowed nervously. The sky beast is waking. Ethan froze. The what? Lyra pointed deeper into the cave, toward the unseen darkness. Something sleeps below the ice. Something old and big. When it moves, storms come. Ethan stared into the tunnel, trying to understand. Your people believe the storm is alive? It is alive, Lyra whispered. It's been sleeping for years. But today? We felt the ground shake. That was its heartbeat. Ethan's stomach tightened. He remembered the tremors earlier, the cracks spreading under his boots. It wasn't just the storm. Something else was happening beneath the planet's surface. Ethan gently touched Lyra's arm. Is that why your family was outside? Lyra nodded slowly, eyes filling with tears. They were trying to reach the old shelter. But the wolves came. I got lost. I couldn't keep up. Their tiny voice broke. I thought I would freeze. Ethan pulled them closer. Not while I'm here. Lyra rested their head against his chest. Listening to his warm heartbeat, the only sound of comfort in this cold, deadly world, another tremor shook the cave. Tiny stones falling from the ceiling. Ethan quickly shifted, shielding Lyra from the falling debris. The child whispered, "It's waking up again." Ethan exhaled sharply. Then we need to move before this whole cave collapses. He lifted Lyra gently and stood. Adjusting his grip, his muscles screamed with pain. But he pushed on. "Hold on to me," he said. Lyra wrapped their arms around his neck. Small and light, but precious, the tunnel narrowed, forcing Ethan to turn sideways as he walked deeper inside. Each step was careful. The ground was uneven and slippery. The sound of dripping water echoed through the cave, creating a strange, haunting rhythm. The deeper they went, the warmer it became. Ethan noticed it first, not warm, but less freezing, temperature rising. He whispered in surprise. Lyra touched the wall gently. These caves connect to warm pockets under the ice. Perfect, Ethan muttered. We can rest there. But just as he moved forward, a faint noise echoed through the tunnel. Not a tremor, not dripping water, something else. A scratching sound, slow and deliberate, like claws. But not like the wolves outside. Ethan froze. Every muscle tightening. Lyra whispered, "What was that?" Ethan lifted his light, pointing it down the tunnel at first. He saw nothing but darkness. Then the scratching came again, louder, closer, and then a shape appeared, low to the ground, moving slowly toward them. Ethan stepped back instinctively, shielding Lyra. The creature crawled out of the darkness, its body thin and long, covered in pale scales. Its eyes reflected the yellow light, two tiny glowing dots. It hissed softly. Lyra gasped. A frost crawler? Ethan frowned. Is it dangerous? Yes, Lyra whispered. Very. It eats anything warm. Ethan tensed. He had no functioning weapon. No real protection except his body. The creature moved closer, sniffing the air, drawn to Ethan's heat. Lyra shivered and pressed closer to him. Trying to hide, Ethan whispered, "Don't move." But then the cave shook against something massive shifting deep below. The frost crawler hissed loudly, reacting to the vibration. Then it lunged. Ethan turned sharply, pressing Lyra against the cave wall, shielding them with his own body. The creature's snapping jaws missed him by inches. Ethan stumbled backward, pulling Lyra deeper into the cave, desperate to escape. The frost crawler followed, fast and hungry, its body sliding across the ground like an icy snake. Ethan realized something terrible. The wolves outside had been just one danger. Inside this cave, a different kind of predator waited, and the worst was yet to come. Ethan ran deeper into the cave, carrying Lyra tightly against his chest as the frost crawler slid after them with sharp, hungry movements. Its icy body scraped against the stone floor, the sound echoing like broken glass in the darkness. Each hiss from the creature reminded Ethan of how close death was again. The tunnel narrowed suddenly, and Ethan made a quick turn into a side passage. His shoulder scraped painfully against the rough rock. But he didn't stop. The frost crawler tried to follow. But the turn was too tight for its long body. It hissed in frustration, smashing its icy tail against the ground. Ethan didn't wait to see if it would find another path. He rushed forward with Lyra in his arms, heart pounding in his chest. The emergency light in his hand flickered weakly, throwing long, dancing shadows along the cave walls. Lyra clung to him, shaking. "Is it gone?" "Not gone," Ethan said quietly, "but trapped for now." He slowed down after a few minutes. Breathing heavily, his muscles hurt, his legs felt numb, and his suit temperature gauge blinked dangerously. Lyra looked up and touched his suit with trembling fingers. "You're getting cold." Ethan gave a tired smile. "I'll be fine," but he wasn't. The storm outside had drained most of his suit's power, and the cave was barely warm enough to keep him alive. The tunnel ahead slowly opened into a wider chamber. Light blue crystals grew from the ceiling like frozen stars, and a thin fog of warm steam rose from cracks in the ground. Lyra gasped softly. "A heat pocket." "We found one." Ethan felt the temperature rise slightly. Not warm, but less deadly. He lowered Lyra onto the ground near one of the steaming cracks. "Stay close to the heat," he said gently. Lyra sat down and hugged themselves, still shivering, but feeling a little stronger. Ethan sat across from them, leaning against the stone wall. His breath came out shaky. He finally let himself relax, even if only for a moment. For a while, they stayed silent, listening to the distant echo of the wind outside and the occasional rumble from deep below. Then Lyra spoke softly. "You saved me." Again, Ethan chuckled quietly. "I guess I'm getting good at it." Lyra looked down at their hands, feeling a strange mix of safety and disbelief. No one from my people would risk themselves like that. Not in a storm like this. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" "Because the storm is alive," Lyra whispered, "and they fear it." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "The sky beast you mentioned." Lyra nodded slowly. "It wakes when the world gets too warm. It creates storms to cool the planet again. But this time, it's waking angry." Ethan rubbed his forehead, trying to understand. "So this whole storm, all of this, is because of something beneath the ice." "Yes," Lyra whispered, "and my people. They tried to hide from it." Their voice trembled painfully. "I don't know if they survived the wolves or the storm." Ethan felt a hard ache inside his chest. He reached out and gently placed his gloved hand on Lyra's head. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. Lyra's eyes glistened, but their tears no longer froze. They were warm now, warmed by the heat pocket and by Ethan's presence. After a moment, Lyra asked, "Why did you help me? You're human, and I'm not." Ethan smiled faintly. "Because it doesn't matter what you are. You're a child who needed help, and you came." Lyra whispered, voice small and full of wonder. Ethan nodded. "Of course I did." Lyra moved closer and leaned against him, their small body trembling less now. Ethan put an arm around them, sharing his warmth. His suit alarm beeped again, another warning that his power was nearly gone, but he ignored it, choosing instead to keep the child warm inside the cave. In the middle of the storm that wanted them dead, a small bond formed, soft, fragile, but strong enough to give both of them hope. Minutes passed. Then another tremor shook the cave, a deep, distant rumble stronger than before. Lyra lifted their head quickly, eyes wide. "It's waking more," they whispered. Ethan stood up slowly. Then we can't stay here long. He adjusted the cloak around Lyra and picked them up again. We have to find your settlement. Or a safer shelter. Lyra nodded, trusting him completely now. But before they moved deeper into the cave, Ethan knelt and looked into Lyra's eyes. I promise you something, he said. I won't leave you. No matter what happens, Lyra's voice shook. Really? Ethan smiled. Really? The child rested their head on his shoulder again, whispering, Thank you for giving me warmth, for saving me. For staying, Ethan inhaled deeply, then stepped forward into the tunnel, carrying the child, carrying his last warmth, walking toward a future full of storms, beasts and dangers he could not yet see. But he didn't walk alone anymore, and that made all the difference. Asterisk. Ethan stepped deeper into the tunnels with Lyra held safely in his arms. The warm pocket behind them was fading, and the air ahead slowly returned to freezing cold. His suit temperature dropped again, and the red warning light blinked on his wrist. Low power, low heat, low oxygen. He ignored all of it and kept walking. Lyra rested their head against his shoulder, tired but awake. Their small fingers curled around Ethan's suit straps. Are we close to the exit? They asked weakly. Ethan looked at the faint tunnel map on his visor. Blurred with interference. If I'm reading this right? Yes. The exit should be straight ahead, but even he wasn't sure anymore. His suit was glitching. The cave tremors were increasing, and the entire mountain seemed alive with movement under the ice. Another tremor shook the ground, making dust fall from the ceiling. Lyra tightened their hold around his neck. The sky beast. It's waking more. Ethan steadied himself. Then we move faster. He took a few careful steps forward. But the moment he turned a corner, loud crack echoed through the cave. Then a giant piece of the ceiling fell behind them. Blocking the path they came from, Lyra gasped. We can't go back. Ethan exhaled slowly. We weren't planning to. The cave ahead opened into a wide chamber with a massive hole in the ceiling where the storm outside roared down like a white waterfall of snow. The wind blasted through the opening, carrying snow and shards of ice into the chamber. Ethan shielded Lyra with his body. We're close to the surface, he said. But this isn't a safe exit. The chamber floor was broken into sharp rocks and deep cracks, glowing faintly blue from the energy below. Each crack pulsed like a heartbeat, like something alive was breathing under the ice. Lyra stared at it with fear. It's close. Very close. Ethan tightened his grip on them. Don't look down. Look at me. Lyra slowly turned their eyes toward him, trusting him more than the ground beneath them. Good, Ethan said. Hold on tight. He moved across the chamber, trying to find a stable path. But the moment he stepped near one of the cracks, a blast of icy air shot upward from the ground. It hit him so hard he stumbled backward. Nearly dropping Lyra, he regained his balance just in time, wrapping both arms around the child. Lyra's small voice trembled. It's breathing. The beast is breathing. Ethan didn't respond, not because he didn't believe it, but because he felt it too. He felt the air move like a lung exhaling. He felt the ground vibrate like something gigantic shifting beneath the frozen world. He kept walking, carefully, scanning for a safe exit. Suddenly, his helmet sensors beeped. A faint signal appeared on his visor, tiny but real. Ethan's eyes widened. A structure. A building signal. Your settlement must be nearby. Lyra gasped softly. You can find it? Yes. Ethan said firmly. I can. He headed toward the signal, passing under the roaring opening above. Snow fell on his shoulders, cold and heavy. His suit heater flickered, dangerously low. He moved faster. Knowing time was disappearing, Lyra shivered in his arms, whispering, I'm scared. He hugged them tighter. I know. But you're strong. You survived the storm longer than most adults could. Lyra looked up at him, amazed. Really? Really? Ethan said, smiling through exhaustion. At the far side of the chamber, Ethan found a narrow tunnel leading upward. The wind whistled through it. The smell of fresh snow drifted in. "Exit," Ethan whispered. "This is it." But before he could take a single step, a deafening roar exploded through the cave. The ground shook violently. Cracks raced across the chamber floor like lightning. Lyra screamed and clung to Ethan. Ethan crouched, protecting them as massive stones fell around them. Snow poured in through the opening above. Blue light pulsed stronger under the ice. The sky beast was fully waking. The roaring continued. Shaking the entire cave system, the tunnel ahead began to collapse. Ethan knew he had seconds, maybe less. He stood up and ran with everything he had left. Snow and rock crashed around him. Lyra buried their face against his chest, crying, "Please don't fall. Please don't fall," they whispered. Ethan's legs burned. His lungs felt tight. His suit alarms screamed warnings, but he didn't stop. He wouldn't stop. He sprinted into the collapsing tunnel, dodging falling rocks, jumping over cracks that opened under his feet. The narrow path shook violently. Snow burst from the walls. The roof began to cave in. Ethan ducked, rolled, and shielded Lyra with his body as debris rained down. For a moment, everything went white. No. Dust, wind, collapsing rock. Ethan couldn't see anything. He could only run forward blindly, trusting his instincts and refusing to let go of the child. Finally, a burst of icy air hit his face. Then blinding white light, they were outside. Ethan stumbled out of the collapsing tunnel and fell to his knees in the snow. Gasping for breath, Lyra lifted their head. Blinking at the sight of open land covered in storm and snow. We made it," they whispered. Ethan nodded weakly. "We made it out of the caves, but the storm was worse here." The wind howled like a living creature. Snow whipped across the land in violent waves. And the settlement signal on Ethan's visor blinked dangerously because it was still far away. Too far for his suit power, too far for the child's weak body. Lyra clung to him tightly. "Can we reach it?" Ethan looked ahead into the raging white world and whispered, "I will get you there, even if it costs me everything." And with the sky beast roaring beneath the ice and the deadly storm swirling around them, Ethan stood up again, carrying the child, carrying his last warmth, carrying hope against the impossible storm, and the final journey began. Ethan pushed forward into the raging white storm, holding Lyra close against his chest. The wind screamed so loudly it felt like knives against his helmet. Snow hit his suit in heavy waves, trying to bury them where they stood, but Ethan refused to stop. Refused to slow down, refused to fall. He had one mission left: get the child home. Lyra lifted their head weakly. Their small arms wrapped tightly around Ethan's neck. "Ethan, see, can you still walk?" He smiled tiredly through the cold. "As long as you're with me." "I can," Lyra pressed their head against him, trusting his words completely. Ethan checked his visor. The settlement signal blinked softly in the distance. A faint red dot on the map, flickering with interference, still far, but reachable if he didn't collapse first. The snow rose up to his knees, each step heavier than the last. His suit heater flickered again, then dimmed. A quiet alarm sounded in his helmet. Critical power shutdown imminent. Ethan whispered, "Just a little more. Just a little." His breath became uneven, his vision blurry. The cold crawled into his suit like a living thing, stealing warmth from his bones. Lyra noticed his shaking arms. "You're freezing." "Ethan, stop. Please, you'll die." Ethan shook his head slowly. "No, I won't die. I promised I'd get you home." Lyra's eyes filled with warm tears that didn't freeze anymore. They whispered, "You saved me. Many times. Let me walk too." Ethan lowered them gently into the snow, But the moment Lyra's feet touched the ground, their legs collapsed, trembling too much to stand. Ethan quickly caught them again, lifting them back into his arms. "See? You're not ready yet," he whispered, his voice soft but firm. "I carry you," he continued, moving forward. Step by step, into the endless storm, the ground trembled beneath them again. A deep roar echoed through the ice, the sky beast awakening fully. Snow exploded upward from cracks, and glowing blue light burst through the frozen ground. The storm became violent, almost furious, as if trying to stop them from reaching safety. But Ethan didn't stop. He held the child tighter and kept going, at last, through the blinding white. Faint lights appeared, tall glowing towers rising from the snow. The alien settlement, close enough to see through the chaos. Lyra gasped with relief. That's home. Ethan forced his legs to move faster, but each step felt like lifting heavy stone. His arms shook painfully from carrying Lyra. His breathing turned rough and shallow. His suit heater stopped completely. Cold rushed in instantly. Biting deep into his skin, he dropped to one knee. Nearly falling face first into the snow, Lyra panicked. "Ethan, no. Please get up." He lifted his head slowly. The lights of the settlement blurred as his vision darkened. But he could still hear Lyra's voice, still feel their heartbeat against his chest. Still remember his promise, with the last strength he had. He stood up again, one step. Another, until he was close enough for the settlement sensors to detect them. A loud alarm sounded across the alien colony walls. Lights flashed, doors opened, figures rushed out, tall aliens in heavy armor. Weapons glowing, they slid across the snow. Shocked at the sight before them, a human nearly frozen to death carrying one of their children in his arms. The guards shouted to each other, "He's alive! He saved the child. Bring healers now." Ethan's legs finally gave way. He fell to his knees, holding Lyra tightly until the guards reached him. The aliens carefully lifted Lyra from his arms. But the child reached back desperately. "No. Don't take me, he saved me. Don't hurt him." The guards exchanged stunned glances. One of them knelt beside Ethan. "You carried this child through the ice storm." Ethan tried to answer, but only managed a weak breath. The cold had nearly taken everything from him. The healer team arrived quickly, wrapping heaters around Lyra. But the child pushed them aside and crawled to Ethan's side instead, holding his frozen hand. Whispering through tears, "Don't leave me. Please, don't leave me." The alien commander stepped forward, shocked by the child's trust. He removed his helmet and knelt, bowing his head. "A sign of deep respect in their culture. A human," he said softly. "Risked his life for one of our young. We owe him a debt beyond words." More aliens gathered, forming a circle around Ethan and Lyra, kneeling. Bowing an entire settlement, lowering themselves to honor one freezing human. Lyra pressed their forehead to Ethan's chest. "You brought warmth to our coldest world," they whispered. "And you saved me when everyone else ran." Ethan opened his eyes weakly, seeing the child safe in warm light. A small smile formed on his lips. "You're home," he whispered. Then he let himself fall unconscious, trusting the aliens to protect the child he fought so hard to save. And that day on a frozen world ruled by storms and ancient beasts, a human became a legend. Not by strength, not by power, but by the simple, unstoppable choice to save a child who wasn't his own.